Well, happy Halloween. Happy Halloween from InfoSec Live, where today we're going to look at whether cyber vendor consolidation is going to be the focus for many CISOs in 2024 with Evgeniy Kharam. But before we bring him on, I'm Simon, not a witch, the founder of the InfoSec Live community. And by sharing stories and best practices, we have had over 100,000 views here on YouTube. Thanks to all of you 7,550 subscribers, which of course all started with the community, where we have study groups, mentor sessions, trying to press a button while I talk, which is really hard, to help you raise your game in cybersecurity. And on Friday, we're kicking off our exclusive Ask the Expert series, where you, our community members, gain advice and guidance from leaders in the industry. And this week on Friday, we have Alex and Ryan from the Adeptis Group helping with all things recruitment. Again, link to join is there. Please do scan, be great to see you there. If you'd like to support the wider InfoSec Live community, or indeed buy me a cheeky decaf pumpkin latte, we do have a couple of ways you can show your appreciation here on our YouTube channel. Firstly, 3 tiers of membership allowing you to show your support in any way that you can, and super stickers in the chat allowing you to show your support live during our streams. And a big thank you to our latest super sticker purchaser earlier on, Art O'Kane. Thank you for your continued support. It really, really does mean a lot. But whether you join or not, being here and engaging with our content is what really matters. So if you're watching this live, please do like and subscribe. We want these events to be as interactive as possible, so make sure you also drop those questions in the chat. Okay, time for the show. Let's bring Evgeniy on. If I can find the button. It's going to be one of those days today. Here we go. I can't. Welcome.
This was very dramatic.
It was very dramatic, wasn't it? It wasn't very Halloween themed either, really. I could have made more of an effort with the video, but
next year.
Next year. Welcome, Evgeniy. Good to have you on here again. It's been a while, isn't it?
Yeah, a couple of months, maybe even 6 months. Quite a long time.
Even 6 months. Yeah, I see you're still wearing the same hat as you were last time I saw you. No, look, thanks for coming on. And it seems to be a very topical discussion at the moment, vendor consolidation. When I chatted to you a couple of weeks back and you mentioned that you'd be prepared to come on and have a chat about it, I was super excited. So do you want to just tell those that haven't met you before or seen you on here a little bit about yourself and your background before we dig in?
Yeah, I'm a professional Halloween cybersecurity professional. I'm just kidding. Yeah. I'm going to remove the hat as well. It's quite hot. So I'm Evgeniy. I live in Toronto, Canada. I've been around for quite a long time. Started my career actually in the Navy in Israel, then spent a couple of years in Checkpoint doing QA. Quite a different way to get to cybersecurity, because when I moved to Canada, I assume everybody know all the protocols, understand how to debug firewalls, but apparently no. So for me, it was a different way to kind of get in. So I spent 15 years in a company called Horjoy Group. If you guys are in US or familiar with the show called Shark Tank, you may know Robert Horjovic. Yeah. I had the opportunity to learn from Robert, to learn from many other people in the company, to run several teams in professional services for network, for endpoint, for a bit of a cloud, for SIEM. Basically, by running all these teams and help companies to implement different solutions, I learned quite a lot, and it navigated me to become an architect. And by becoming an architect, I know how pretty much everything work and connect. I cannot say I know all the buttons and I cannot configure them, but I understand the architecture, I understand how they connect, how they work, what's the logic, where to design, and how to correctly design. I'm a very, very big believer in design and architecture and connected infrastructure. I also had quite a lot of time in presentation, pre-sales of different solutions and managed services. I did graduate last year from Herjavec Group, and I'm now running my own consulting service. I also have two podcasts. One is very technical, and one is completely not technical, where I talk to founders of vendors about their inspiration to start the company. It's more of the business process and business podcast. How do you hire people? How do you build a culture? How do you look for money? How do you solve problems? So quite interesting. And I'm right
Do you have
now.
links for those that you could drop in the private chat? Then I can put them in the chat.
Yeah, we can probably do it here as well. Yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
Love a podcast.
Yeah, and part of the work I'm doing as well with enterprises is now I need to find the private chat. I can put it here and you can talk. Yeah. So under security architecture, you're able to find both of the podcasts, cyber inspiration and security architecture. Is license consolidation. Because I know so much about many different vendors, I have this interesting opportunity to go and understand the architecture of the customer, the license they have, and then help them consolidate. Because I do see, we'll talk about this later, basically some customers say, oh, I have this firewall, this device, that device, without going into too much details. But when the vendor sold to them, they now have the same license, let's say URL filtering to analyze URLs on 4 different vendors' products. Like, do you actually use all of them? Not really. So this understanding about the architecture, how actually companies work, and the license create a very unique opportunity for me to help companies, not just to have a better architecture and design, but also save money.
So is, I suppose we're still in a fairly early stage of the industry. And again, I've only been in here 3 years, so I bow down to your experience. But the vendor consolidation discussion, potentially, is that something we may not been able to have a few years ago because the market wasn't mature enough? Or do you think it's been mature enough for a while?
So there's a couple of things. When I started in 2006, and there's people that started way before me. I mean, I did before, but when I actually started working with many different vendors, 2006, there was like 5 vendors, five different angles. We had an antivirus, we had a firewall, we had an email gateway. There was some stuff around it later on IPS, but for the last 15 years, we have 100 different of domains. There's so many different opportunities. There's so many, like the endpoint security space itself has probably 10 different subcategories of what you can do. And guess what? A vendor or a couple of vendors for each of the subcategories. So this is definitely interesting. And I think the opportunity came, one, from, okay, now I have all these vendors, 2, oh, we have some big budget for cybersecurity. Can we actually consolidate? Can we do something better? And the realization during COVID, do I just buy everyone? Or maybe before I buy, I understand if I have this capability with my existing vendor. I can tell you right now that when you talk to customers and you ask them, hey, if you have a problem to solve, how often do you go to your existing vendors and ask them, hey, Mr. Vendor, is this something you're planning to develop? Yeah. No, they're just going to find a new vendor to do this. Instead of asking for, hey, we want roadmaps every 6 months, every year, we want to understand what's happening. If you're going to develop this soon or it's coming, why do I need to go and fix this problem with somebody else? And later on, yes, this somebody else is going to have issues with integration. It's not going to work holistically in my environment. Back to connecting the dots and connecting everything.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Let's kick off then with the first question on the list. You've dealt with lots of different companies. Is there a typical amount of vendors you see at the companies you visit, or is it very different compared to each organization?
From my personal view, is you're a small company, like below 200, you're probably going to have around 20 vendors. You can have maybe, if you're going up to 1,000, 5,000, you're going to around 50 vendors and more. If you're above 10,000, you're easily in 100 vendors. This is just cybersecurity.
Wow.
Like the moment you pass 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, there's a lot of stuff. And especially if you're combining development and consumer. So think about this. So let's say I'm a I don't know, insurance company, okay?
Yeah.
I have my internal corporate security where I'm gonna need my endpoints, my firewalls, my email security, blah, 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 blah. And now I need to also develop my insurance software. So this insurance software gonna have its own set of tools. This is the application security tools, the WAF tools to protect the web application firewall, the DDoS tools, the IPS, the load balancers, and many other things that need to protect this environment as well.
Wow. So up to 100, did you say 100 or 150 tools?
The banks that I'm working here in Canada are surpassing 150 very, very easy.
So there must be cost savings to be made there, right? With the overlap of the things that different vendors' products do now compared to what it was a few years ago.
Definitely. Now, the part that we also see is that if you're an engineer and if you're consuming of the technology, in many cases, your work is to grow the technology and do your best with the technology. Not in many cases, your work is also to look on the cost saving of this technology.
Correct. Yeah.
So like, oh, I need this. Like I can tell you that I work with one company, and I don't want to names of the vendors of the company to say, but they basically had a threat intelligence service that cost them $300,000 a year, and they basically just needed to create a report once a quarter. I was like, seriously?
Wow.
It's like, just go pay somebody else $20K every quarter for the report.
Yeah.
You're gonna still saving money.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I expect that's not an isolated case either.
No. I was working with a different company when they didn't upgrade on the SIEM to a cloud, but the salesperson from the other side, I guess, didn't really explain everything. And when we look on the license, I asked them why your lab license are cost to 200,000. This is what they told me. But you just spent a couple of millions in the cloud. Couldn't they give you it for free? I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. So we were literally on the same spot. Hey, email the salesperson, tell you want the lab license for free. He's like, I can do it. It's like, yes. He emailed them and he got it like, yeah, of course you can get it for free. Because you spend so much time in the cloud, like, why would you need your lab to pay money? You know, it's basically just to test before I push to a cloud.
You could argue that it would have been nice of them to offer that without you having to ask.
Yes.
Okay, I suppose this next question I've got down here, we may have answered that already, but do companies need to buy more vendors, Evgeniy?
If I'm a vendor, of course, yes, buy more vendors. I need to pay for my kids to do. Honestly, in many cases, yes, because there's new problems we need to solve. So we cannot say no, don't buy anyone, because there is new problems. Like, for example, like my dear friend Dimitri worked on a company where they're doing SBOM. They're basically creating software bill of materials. This problem didn't exist really in the scale 5 years ago. But guess what? The executive order came out 2 years ago by President Biden, and he basically says everybody that works with public sector need to have SBOMs. Suddenly, everybody need to do this because now it's a requirement to work with this part. And there's many cases like this when we didn't really need something, but now we need this because it become a requirement. This become part of something people need to do. Very good examples is the entire idea of cloud. Now we have so many different tools in the cloud to understand our cloud health, understand if it's configured correctly, and we always find new features and new use cases why there is something else. When we didn't, basically we invent a technology that help us to do something, and then we realize now we need to secure it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you think? No, I know what I'm going to ask you. This could be a relevant question. So, is there a rule of thumb as to how often a company should review their technology stack, especially around security? Is it an annual thing, or does it depend on the business itself?
My view is, think about like a maintenance, like car maintenance. You're doing every so often a very big one, and then if you keep to your maintenance, then nothing big will happen in majority of the cases. So I suggest do an annual review, even though it may be hard, but then realize, oh, I did an annual review and it took me, I don't know, 4 weeks. Is that the easiest way to do it? Maybe change the way you work with vendors. Have a vendor management software. It's going to be easier for you to track. Understand what is the most biggest problems you found. Do you maybe need a different way to onboard a vendor that you're not going to need in the next year to do this work again? Because in reality, if you're a big bank, it's going to be very time consuming and very expensive to do it every year. Maybe you can do it every 2 years, for example, but you have to change something, not just do it and expect that it's going to be less.
Yeah, no, absolutely. JJ's made a comment here. I want to get your thoughts on that. 99% of solutions solve absolutely nothing, but become in need of a solution themselves.
Nice, nice. It's a JJ. It's a very good comment. I know you're working on the stock, and I know how you have a very good views. So again, I'm an architect. My first question to vendors is like, what problem do you solve, and if do I have this problem, and then how do you solve this problem, and me back is how you're going to integrate back to my environment. So JJ, back to you is it's depend what you're doing. Let's go to DDoS. DDoS supposed to solve DDoS, denial of service. We can argue if it's solving this good or bad, but this is what it's supposed to solve. We can argue a lot if the endpoint security is actually doing anything or not, and we need more about Defender, for example, for Microsoft. So there's different solutions, I guess, depend use by use case and what do you need. And as I mentioned before, in some cases, we need some of the technology because of the government requirement or some other requirements as well, unfortunately. We have email security. Email security can solve spam or maybe not. JJ, you know what? I'm more than happy to have this argument or decision or debate after that. It will be very, very fun. We'll be happy to do it. If no, we'll agree to disagree, but we'll be have to do. So ping me live, ping you later. Let's do it. Maybe we can do it with Simon here together.
Oh, that would be awesome. Next question then. Where are the opportunities to consolidate in particular? Is there anything you're seeing at the moment?
A lot of opportunity to consolidate. And this may be actually back to JJ, if this solution is not really doing stuff and nobody using this, and then why not? Consolidation could be in endpoint security, email security, different teams and how they use solutions, because some teams need, I absolutely need this solution. It's like, why do you need this solution? Why cannot use the other solutions people using as well? So there's quite a lot of consolidation tools, could be application security as well, could be firewalls and the way inspect information. This entire idea of SASE, SSE, secure service edge. And do you really need a firewall and SASE and the remote access, or you can consolidate and do it in one? One of the issues I see that people have happening is people don't have good use cases and success criteria when they POC solutions. And they almost like, let's test this. Let's do that. Squirrel. Let's test something else. But what about that part? So they don't really have a methodology to test, to stop and understand, okay, this looks interesting, or just come up with this AI feature, but it was out of scope when you were testing this. So don't look on this.
Yeah.
Finish your POC, finish understanding what you're looking for and why you're looking for.
It's funny you say that, because the vendors make such a big thing out about their shiny bells and whistles. And going back to something you said a couple of moments ago, the first question you asked them was, what problem do you solve? I see very few vendors reflecting that in their marketing. Do you think there's area for improvement there?
It's actually very easy. Stop using language that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And when you say I've solved the biggest problem in cybersecurity, mean absolutely nothing to anyone.
Yeah.
If you just say, I am a vendor that work in a public cloud and help customers to understand misconfiguration in your cloud. This is simple language.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah,
I think the same is.
I may like it, I may don't like it, but at least I understand what does it mean. And I use AI machine learning to understand the more sophisticated 0 days attack in some environment. And how does it help me?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So yes, vendors are trying to be flashy. Vendors trying to do some stuff. And we have this new way of what we call educated buyer, when a buyer can now go to ChatGPT, go to Bard and say, I am looking for a vendor in this space. What should I ask them? And this is actually a very good use case as to how you can use ChatGPT to.
That's a really good point. Let me move you up to the top because I want to bring a comment up and it will cut your head off. Here we go. Jonathan Van Houten. Marketing makes executives think they cannot live without X, then sell X without stating that in order for it to be useful, it must fulfill a need and then have the product configured properly, which again is a whole other discussion perhaps.
So this is interesting part. I started security architecture with Dimitri because of the last part you say is configured properly. Because I'll go with the vendor, we'll explain what they need, the vendor will sell a solution, I'll come out 6 months after, and it will not be deployed. We call it shelfware. Like it's still on the shelf. Like, oh, why? Oh, this dude left. We don't know what to do it. It's actually not what we were looking for. We changed the configuration. So I got tired of, and basically why we sell solutions that people cannot install from a variety of reasons, or they didn't do the homework, RFIs, POCs correctly. So this is why we started security architecture, to actually ask the same questions on from vendors on one particular domain, like SASE, remote access, AppSec, to actually avoid this problem.
That makes absolute sense. Okay, next question. I've asked you this one already. I've got it written down here about opportunities to save money. I think we know the answer to that. There definitely is, right?
Opportunity to save money, there's a couple of one. That first of all, you can definitely buy a multi-year subscription from a vendor, going to be cheaper. But again, I'm not trying to do this for you. Oh, I think the opportunity to save money is to understand, are you using all the license that you actually have? In majority of the cases, the customers will buy a solution and only use 60 to maybe 70 in a good case, the license they're entitled to. So if you don't need this license, don't renew them. If you need this license, then use them. Here is the most simple way to save money.
Going back to what you said about going into a lot of businesses and seeing that things have been sat on the shelfware for a year since you've last been in, do you think there's any responsibility there for the vendors to help a little bit more with that implementation piece, or is it a fact of more of a problem with the actual consumer?
I think it's both. Unfortunately, I don't like how the sales and the vendor space get paid. Maybe if I have my own company, I'll do the same, but yeah. I hope not. Basically, the moment you sold the deal, the salesperson get commission.
Yeah.
My view is the salesperson need to get commission when the deal is done.
Yeah, well,
when the deal is deployed. Yeah.
Take it a step further than that. I think the way to really solve that problem would be to have it on a drip basis. So if you're signing up on a 3-year contract, you get 30% upfront once it's deployed, and then you get.
So basically, almost like with the kitchen, you know.
Exactly.
I pay you when the kitchen is done.
Yeah, I'll pay you when the kitchen's done. That's a really good point. JJ's put a really long message.
Oh my God,
this is like. I can read it. If I put it on the screen, I'm going to disappear. Look, there we go. And you can't even read it. Let me see what it says. All too frequently, we opt for the remedies that merely address the symptoms rather than the core issue. It's akin to patching up a deep wound without first cleaning and addressing the internal damage. Many enterprises venture into the market without a comprehensive understanding of the problem's scope, or mistakenly interpret compliance requirements without grasping their genuine implications. Numerous vendors driven by sales targets rarely genuinely concern themselves with your challenges. My inbox and direct messages are filled daily with discussions from vendors who I believe don't truly understand the problem or even the essence of their so-called solution.
100%, JJ. I don't even try to argue here. My first
That's very unlike you, Evgeniy.
No. Like I have my views, but I agree with people that reflect them. So one of the first things I tell people was the biggest problem. It's like, should we use AI? It's like, no. What should we do? Freaking understand your asset management. Like this is my first view of people. Like majority of the customers don't understand what you're trying to protect.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what you're trying to protect, there is no way you will able to buy a magic tool that will do it for you if you don't know what you have in there. And it's especially important for SOC and SIEMs and XDRs, all other magical tools. If I cannot put information that they can analyze, I'm not gonna get good output. So, sausage, bad things in, bad things out. Yeah. Here as well. Now, you also, like what JJ mentioned here about the remedy, I think it's related to asset management. We don't understand the architecture, we're not understanding our crown jewels. So the other question I like to ask the customers, what's important for you to protect? Don't tell me everything. because every person I'm going to ask in the company, the CFO, the marketing, the CTO will tell me something else. But in the end of the day, if I shutting your internet down, if you're shutting your service down, how much money are you going to lose a day and why? People don't have answer for this. Not everybody, but many of them don't. So if we're able to understand what is the crown jewels for you, what you're trying to protect and why, and can we make this architecture, this service better, resilient, or use, now we can justify for more money to protect this particular part, because, okay, if you know, yes, if you have one data center, I'm not telling you just to build another one because I believe in high availability because I'm an architect.
Yeah.
But maybe there is a way to automatically build it. It will take me 4 hours to do it and bring the service back, but it will cost me $20,000. But building a new data center will cost me $200,000. So it's actually cheaper in this case to build it again if we know how to do this. So this is the reasons why we asked people, hey, how do you do recovery service? Do you have a backup plan? And many other questions people ask to understand about the resiliency of the service. But crown jewels is important. And I think this is related to understanding one of the remedies. We need to understand what and how we need to protect.
Yeah, I completely agree. Prashant said, if only vendor salespeople were technical people.
Oh, no. Sorry, my friend. There is one for everything. So let's think about this. First of all, I think something changed for the last 10 years. The majority of the sales is now done on the engineer, in my mind, the sales engineer, because it becomes so technical. The sales people are more procurement gurus, because right now, if you need to buy something, you need to have like 55,000 signatures.
Yeah.
So the sales people became more of the procurement people that know, understanding how companies actually buy. Do I need an MSA, master level service agreement? Do I know when you buy? Do I know who needs the signatures? Do I need to go to committee? If there's a cloud committee. So there's a bit of a change, but yes, the salespeople need to understand the jargon and they need to understand what's happening.
Yeah, very much so. As JJ said, techies talking to techies can be a very dangerous game. Prashant, back to your comment though. I think you're a great example of someone who'd be, I know Prashant personally from the community, you'd be a great sales engineer. You can talk to people, you can communicate, and you've also been in the industry for 20 years and you know the technical part. So that to me would make a good sales engineer. We're running out of time because it's only 30 minutes today because I've got to take my plethora of children banging on random strangers' doors to demand sweets with menaces. It's something called Halloween. Last question.
Let me put my LinkedIn here. Guys, if any of you want to connect and continue the conversation, happy to do it. I have a lot of views on technical pre-sales, how it should be, not should be, and what I saw from my experience. So here,
I'll ask you one more question before we go. We've talked about it a little bit, but it's one that could be relevant for the CISOs watching. Talk to me about vendor renewals and how they can be improved.
Yeah, so first of all, vendor renewals, one important part is start it early. If you know you're going to be renewing the vendor or not renewing the vendor, start 6 months before. Understand, tell the people to understand all the support cases were open. Understand, are you happy with this vendor or not happy with the vendor? So almost kind of build your case. Like if you're going to your wife or your husband and you want to buy a new kayak, or new motorcycle, or a new car, you need to build a case why you need it, so, or whatever it is, like why you need to fly with your buddy somewhere. So build a case if you like it or not like it. Especially that the vendor may increase the price when they're going to be renewal. So you want to understand. Now also, the same as you going to buy a car and you go in shopping and you go to different dealerships. If you know you're going to renew an endpoint security vendor or firewall, the same, go ask for some RFI prices from other vendors, because you want to understand what's happening there. And again, you want to have a use case for your vendor. Now, if your vendor give you a renewal, give you a discount, not trying to increase the price, good for you, happy camper. If they're increasing the price and you know you have no choice and you want to build this use case to explain why you don't want the price to be increased. Because the vendors know if you locked in, they know you locked in, because they know it may be hard for you to move to somebody else.
Yeah, very true. And last question, seeing as we've got one come up from the audience here from CSEC Girl. Whilst we're talking about consolidation of vendors, should we look into fourth parties data processing as well?
Are you talking? I'm guessing the question here about the third parties, other people, what they're doing, and vendors.
Yeah.
It's a bit different because are there cybersecurity vendors or different vendors? I think we're tapping here to more of the third-party management and how we manage the third party, what kind of access they have. So there's going to be more with the maturity to bring vendors into the environment. And also there is a different process of how often do you review these vendors? How often you come back and understand if these vendors now need more access or something changes their security. So it's a bit different discussion, but it's a very important discussion as well.
Yeah, thanks, Evgeniy. Right, I'm going to drop your LinkedIn profile in the chat here. If anyone wants to connect and chat further with Evgeniy, please do connect with him on LinkedIn. For those of you going out trick-or-treating with your children, good luck. I feel your pain.
We need to put the hats again or no?
Yes, I better get ready, actually. Here we go. I've even got a mask on this one. Look at that. It's a little bit small as my daughter's. So yes, have a very happy Halloween, everyone. Hope you have an amazing time. Evgeniy, thank you so much for coming on. See you all again soon. Trick or treat.
Thank you, everyone. Good, very good questions.